Today we are going to make a skull plaque. This is what I call an antler plaque or a skull plaque. You start off with the head that you want to use, skin it out from your deer, and then you decide what shape you want it. I have 3 different shapes to go on. An arrowhead, just the basic oval, and then a different skull shape. Once you picked out which sides you want, you take your antlers and you cut them in the front and the back, and then you screw it into the plate, mud over the top. When cutting it, you'll probably have to cut it a couple different times to make it correct, but just to show you, we're going to be cutting across the front and across the back. Hopefully, it'll be about the right angle to fit into here. Today, we are going to use the arrowhead, so we don't need to worry about either of these. You can either put it on a wood mount like this, or just use it plain by itself to hang on the wall. Today I think we're just going to use just the plain arrowhead to hang on the wall. These are nice to do because it's simple, easy, fast, and you make pretty good money at it. Okay, now we've got the skull. Seems to fit. May have to cut it a couple of times, get it quite the angle you want it to. It doesn't have to be super tight because we're going to put a clay underneath it. And so you just need something that's going to fit into your base relatively well. Now to clean it out, to make sure that you don't have bug problems down the road or anything, you can either boil the antlers or use because sometimes there's junk that needs cleaned out, or use a torch to do it. You want to be careful if you use a torch, obviously. Issues of starting fires. Now that you've got it burnt, use a steel brush, clean it off. Good enough. That will help to keep any bug problems away if you had any sort of meat or membrane, anything like that. Now we're ready for the plate here and attaching it to the skull. These forms come with the wax on them. This is just made out of foam. So when you get them, you want to take something to break up the wax because we're going to be painting over the top and the paint won't adhere as well if it's not broken up. So I just real quickly take a piece of sandpaper and just run it over, trying to break up a lot of the sealer that they put over the wax. Another thing that works well is a foam sanding block. Okay, you just don't want to take very long doing it, just want to sand it, get it roughened up a little bit. That'll help the paint adhere to it. Here we have some clay. This is called critter clay. Really doesn't matter what kind of clay you use. You're just trying to find something that's going to replace the brain cavity of where the deer was before. This kind of has a hump, so that helps. But this is going to fill in around the edges, just make something that's nice to press the antlers down against. give it a little support. You want to line it up left to right, kind of get an idea of where to put it. You don't want it clear off one side, clear off another side. You don't want it tilted clear back or tilted clear forward. It'll look funny on the wall. Kind of want the top of the skull to match the slope of your form that's coming up. You want it something like this. Now we're going to put 3 screw holes in so that we have a way to attach it to our antler plate. I'm just going to drill holes and then use a countersink bit on my drill, and that'll be a good way to do that. Okay, we want to remount the holes big enough that the threads will go down through, but not the head. We don't want the threads to go down through, pull it down. We just want the screw to slide through and the heads to stay on top. So that there's not a bump above them where the heads of the screws will be, I'm just going to use a countersink bit. Nothing that smells worse than cutting and sawing bone. I'm just using 2-inch drywall screws. This is a mache that I get from my supply companies, and I mix it till it's a paste about the consistency of a peanut butter. I don't want it too runny, but yet I want it mixed in smooth enough that I can work with it. It's called smooth fish fill, and I use it for all my antler plaques and when I go to mount deer heads and different things. Just want a nice firm consistency. I like to use hot water. It seems to make it set up a little bit faster. I have about 45 minutes till it gets hard. So I have more than enough time to do anything I need to do here. And then I spend a lot of time just waiting on it. You just want to fill in around the antlers. Okay, we've allowed this to dry. Now I'm going to just take a black enamel paint and paint over the top of it. We're going to do 2 or 3 coats with it. I'm just using a Rust-Oleum black paint. And then on our last coat, once we decide that it's covered enough, we will shake. This is just ground flocking, or ground felt called flocking. It's just a black color. On our last coat of paint, we'll shake this over the top of it, and it'll give it a nice felt look to it. without having any wrinkles from actually having to stretch the felt or anything like that. So I found this to be a real good way to do it. Gives you a real nice look when you're done. When I'm painting this on, I just try to stay off the antlers. You don't have to do anything real fancy. I just lay down a piece of paper to paint on top of, try to keep my counters a little nicer. Helps them clean up a little bit. Normally I would try to get the top of this real smooth, but on this particular one we were going for more of a rough look with the arrowhead designs, so I wasn't too worried about getting the plaster perfectly smooth like concrete. Now I'm doing 2 or 3 coats, so your first one, it doesn't have to be wonderful. You just are looking to try to cover everything. On the second and third coats, you'll be going back over the top, getting in any cracks. On this, I'll work it around, I'll paint right up to the bases. I try not to get any on the antlers themselves. This particular set of antlers have been sitting outside, they're just a leftover set I had. I will do a demonstration later on fixing the tines. Some of the tines here are chewed up and I've got a way to fix those that I'll do in a different segment. You just want to work all the way around, make sure you get all your edges. Okay, it's not perfect, but it got the job done. Any spots that aren't perfect I will fill in, and then I'll try to do the best job I can on my last coat. I'll try to get around the antler bases and everything perfect. That way when I put the flocking on, it'll cover everything. I'll use the paint as my glue to hold the flocking down. I'll let it sit for a couple of days and dry. Then I'll just lift it and shake it off. And that's how I will end up with my nice set of antlers that look like they have felt over the top of them, but there won't be any wrinkles or anything in it. It'll look real nice.